The man's plane broke down in the Sahara Desert and landed in the wilderness, the yellow sand rolling with no end in sight. At this point, despair was written on his face, and he feared that he would die quietly until the stars filled the night sky. The man still didn't find a way out of the predicament, and he was so anxious that he didn't sleep all night. When the first rays of the morning sun shining on his desperate face, the man heard the voice of a child, "Please draw me a sheep." Looking at the mysterious little boy in front of him, the man rubbed his eyes nervously, and thought that he was hallucinating. When people are confronted with the unknown beyond their understanding, they often dare not resist easily, although they cannot draw. But it still meets the boy's requirements, but the first sheep is painted sickly, and the second one is accidentally painted as a goat. The third one is too old. "I want a sheep that can live for a long, long time." The man felt a bit harsh, frowned and drew a wooden box with holes, and forcibly explained that it ends here. "The sheep you want is inside." "It's exactly what I want." The man couldn't understand the boy in front of him. He said that he lived in a small place and that the sheep couldn't eat much grass. "You can grow up with him, and a man's heart will soften at once, so he will become attached to a boy. He says his name is the Little Prince, and he is from the planet B612, where there is a greedy baobab tree on his planet. Once he grows up, he eats the entire planet, and his daily job is to shovel these saplings, so he needs a sheep to help him." But one day, the wind blew a seed out of nowhere, and a plant grew like he had never seen before. The little prince hoed and watered her every day, and fell asleep with her at night, believing that the fruit of this seed would be very amazing. Finally, on a silent night, the seed quietly bloomed into a delicate rose. "You're so beautiful. I've just woken up, please forgive me for not getting dressed up yet. You're perfect. Needless to say, I was born at the same time as the sun." The little prince had his own rose on this lonely planet, and they watched the sunrise together for the first time. The first time we watched the sunset together, when night fell, Rose felt cold. Hearing her sick cough, the little prince put a glass cover on her. "If you have the heart, you should think more about me." The delicate Rose enjoyed the care of the little prince, but she was still conceited and unsatisfied, and the weariness of love made the little prince miserable. She made more and more unreasonable demands, and the little prince could hardly bear the heavy trust of his heart, and he made things and make people. Although they love each other, they are too young to know how to love. So one night, the little prince chose to escape from the roses and the planet with doubts about love. "Of course I love you. I don't make you feel that it's my fault, please forgive me." On his quest to find out what love is, he passes through many strange planets, the first of which is owned by a king. Although he was the only one here, the arrival of the little prince gave the king his first subject. "Your Majesty, what do you rule?" "I rule over all things in the world." "Do the stars all listen to you?" "Of course, I don't allow any sexual rebellion. I really want to see the sunset, it reminds me of my roses. Can you command the sun to go down at this moment?" The king was so frightened that he threw away his scepter, but he said yes, but only when the conditions were right. It was about 7 o'clock in the evening, when the little prince sighed in disappointment, and the king made him feel hypocritical. In the blink of an eye, the little prince flew to the second planet, where there lived a gentleman who thought that everyone should be his admirer. As soon as someone applauded, he would take off his hat and salute in thanks, and the gentleman enjoyed such admiration. "I feel like the most handsome, rich and intelligent man on the planet," the little prince said. "But you're the only one on this planet. Please, do well or admire me, please." The little prince didn't want to be a blind believer and came to the third planet, where a profit-oriented merchant lived. Immersed in calculations and possession, he spent most of his time counting money, and his only hobby was looking at the stars. He wanted to make more money to buy more stars, but he never had time to look up at the free night sky. The little prince thinks the adults are really very strange, and the last time he lands, he comes to a vast blue planet and meets a mysterious friend he has never met. "Good evening." "Good evening. What planet is this?" This is the earth, and this is Africa. The little prince had never been here, but he felt a little lonely in the desert, but the viper said that it would be lonely even in a crowded place. Although it has no legs, it can send humans to faraway places that cannot be reached by foot. If the little prince wants to return to his planet one day, Viper is willing to help him. The little prince appreciates his kindness, but before that he wants to explore alone for a while on a long journey through the desert. Climbing over the rocks through the wind and snow, the little prince met a red fox and looked at each other instantly. Thinking that it would be his destined friend, the little prince sent out an invitation. "Play with me." "I can't play with you, I'm not tamed." "What is taming?" To tame means to create a bond. To the fox, the little prince was just an ordinary little boy, no different from thousands of other little boys. They don't matter to each other, and to the little prince, the fox is no different from thousands of other foxes. But if the little prince tames the fox, they will need each other and become the only ones in life. The little prince walked towards the fox with sincere kindness, and the pleasant time he spent together made him completely tame it. "To me, you're going to be the only person in the world. I'll be unique to you, too." They frolicked among the golden ears of wheat, keeping each other company and warmth, until that day the little prince passed through a rose garden. "Who are you?" "We are roses. My rose is just a regular rose." But she told me that she was the only rose in the universe. "She's not an ordinary rose, she's your rose. The time you put into her makes her irreplaceable. She's my rose. You'll have to go back to her." The fox knew that their companionship had come to an end, and that the little prince was not only the only one for himself, but also the only one for the rose. Their tame began with a meeting in the water, and he and Rose were the only heart-to-heart, and the parting made the fox cry. The little prince was ashamed, and he tamed the fox, but it did him no good. "I'll tell you a secret as a gift. Only by looking with the heart can you see it really. Important things are invisible to the naked eye." This was the journey of the little prince, and the men were touched by what he said, but it was imperative that they live. After drinking the last drop of water, the little prince decided to go to the desert to find a well, although the phrase seemed like a fantasy. But the little prince was determined, and took the man's hand to tell him not to give up easily, until the last trace of the sunset dissipated. They still found nothing, but the little prince felt it. The stars are beautiful. It's because of a flower out of reach. The desert is beautiful. It's because there's a well hidden in one of its corners. The little prince lay tired and fell asleep in the man's arms, and in the moonlight, the man looked at his pale forehead and felt that the little prince was close in front of him. But like an ethereal shell, it will soon disappear like a dream, and at dawn they will indeed find a well. The sweet water of the well quenched hunger and thirst, and the little prince said that the people of the earth planted thousands of roses. But I can't tell which one is most important to me, so I spend my life looking for regrets, always thinking that the next one will be better. But when I got it, I always looked forward and backward uneasily, forgetting the rose in my heart, and from beginning to end, there was only the original one. After several twists and turns, the man finally repaired the plane, and when he went to look for the little prince, he bumped into him talking to a poisonous snake, and the man was afraid that he would be injured, so he quickly took out his gun. The serpent suddenly disappeared between the rocks, and the little prince seemed to know that they were going to separate, and told the man that he would also go home tonight. His home was farther away than a man's, and it was more difficult to go back, and he was scared but had no choice. When he left, he gave the man a gift and said that he would continue to live on a star in the night sky when the man looked up at the stars at night. His shadow could be seen, the journey was too long, and he couldn't leave with this body. So let the viper give him a ride, and he told the man not to feel sorry for the useless shell, because it was just a skin. What's important will always remain, and if you can't see it with your eyes, feel it with your heart.